Welcome to the Pitch Strike Chronicles podcast brought to you by Northeast Streaming Sports on Roku and Facebook, and we are on our channel on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And it was just an embarrassing game last night. Embarrassing.
Cut the music. Andrew Benintendi, baby.
we are definitely going to get into that. That was, when you don't want to go to bed. You're fighting your parents, and then they go, you know what? We'll let you stay up for one more hour, and you get all excited. That was going to bed, getting the news that Andrew Benintendi was traded for. It was just that thing we needed to, get that good night's sleep. That help is coming, and they did not wait until the last minute to start making some adjustments. So actually, you know what? Let's get into the Benintendi news first, and we did not have to give up a lot for him. We had three pitching prospects. Rob, what can you tell us, if anything, about with these players?
They weren't going to make an impact this year, next year, the year after.
They weren't on the radar.
They weren't going to make an impact this year, next year, or the year after that. They're minor league pitching prospects. You didn't give up much for a rental. So it's a move that you see every year for a player like Benintendi. They don't give up too much. You kind of look at the return and go, that's it. It wasn't a big trade at all in terms of what we gave up, and it didn't prevent us. None of these players prevent us from making another big move. So it's a perfect trade when you think about it. We get a player that we need right now, and we gave up three guys that hopefully have good careers in Kansas City or elsewhere, but we won't see them for another 2 years minimum. Beck Way is probably the closest out of all three of them, but he's still a couple of years off. So it's a move that it's not going to prevent us from making other moves. Doesn't hinder our future or anything like that. It's a perfect trade.
It was our number 18 and number 21 prospect. Were the two headliners in the deal. So they were towards the bottom end of our top 20 prospects, but they're not going to have an impact. They were never going to have an impact as a Yankee. It was an absolute steal of a trade. Such a good trade. Normally, because it's the Yankees, the price always goes up exponentially, especially for a player like Andrew Benintendi. But the fact we got him for such a reasonable exchange, so I've got the full details of the deal here. Chandler Champlain, TJ Sycamore, and Beck Way. I believe TJ Sycamore was our 18th prospect and Beck Way was our 21. But it was a very good trade right there. Brian Cashman pulled off an absolute steal, a ninja cash move right there. Absolute ninja cash move.
Yeah, and I think it was important, one, on both sides of the discussion. You wanted to make sure that if we were making a trade for a player, even if it was just for a rental, you didn't overpay, because there are still other, roster moves that need to be made. And, that still leaves us a lot of arsenal to go and get, Castillo. Maybe get, maybe even on top of Castillo, get also along with him, you can always go and get Montas. So they still have the prospects to keep more moves coming, where you didn't empty the tank in one move and go, okay, let's just hope this works.
You didn't give up anything that will keep you from making another big move. None of these guys, there isn't a team out there, let's say it was Cincinnati saying, look, you traded Beck Way, there's no shot you get Castillo. It's not – that's not the case. And what Benintendi brings to this lineup is what we needed desperately. He comes in, he'd be first in the team in average, first in on base, fourth in weighted on base average. He's fourth in weighted runs created plus, and he's fourth in WAR. I'm not counting Matt Carpenter because he only played 30-something games.
Yeah.
That he's our fourth best player in top three player in the team right now. He's better than the majority of our lineup. We desperately needed that. We got him for three minor league pitching prospects. It's a great move, and it's the first of what should be a flurry of moves that we need to make to ensure that we're serious about an October run. And if Jack Curry, who knows everything, apparently the guy mentioned Castillo's name like 6 times last night.
Yeah.
He knows something, and I think Castillo's coming sooner than later. I hope at least. He doesn't say a player's name like that constantly without him knowing something. He'll say like they like Castillo and they like Montas and Quintana and so on, but he said they're zeroing in on Castillo. They had scouts to go see Castillo. He said him named 4 other times last night in like 30-minute span. He knows something. He's very cryptic when he doesn't want to leak out information, but he was telling us something last night. I think Castillo's coming sooner than later. I hope at least.
Yes, exactly. He said we were zeroing in on Castillo. So as you rightly point out, he's not going to say these things as an employee of the Yes Network. You know, you're not going to break these huge rumors without very, very, very strong evidence that this is happening. So I do expect it to happen sooner than later, and that'll be a huge deal. But I definitely don't want to overlook the fact that we just got Benintendi. So forget the talking, always looking ahead. Let's just focus on the here and now. We've got ourselves a guy who walks right in to the lineup as Rob points out, probably our 3rd or 4th best player in the entire team. So that was an excellent trade. Won a championship with the Red Sox. Dude's a winner, and his numbers are phenomenal. This is batting .320 this year. That puts him in the 90th percentile in batting average in the major leagues. I mean, that's really hard to do in the modern era, to be batting .320. It's very, very hard to do, because the normal average is around about 230, right? And he's batting .320, so that'd be like .350 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean? That's how good he is right now. So it was an absolute steal.
Yeah, and what I think is kind of interesting is we actually start a series with the Royals tonight. So it's gonna, we're just gonna go to the other side of the dugout, of the diamond. But we still haven't heard anything about the corresponding move for the roster, which I think is, I'm hoping comes out, sooner rather than later, because they still have to make room for him. We all want it to be Gallo, but is that almost a lock that this means Gallo is out and getting tossed somewhere? What are your predictions of the corresponding roster move for Benintendi?
Gallo. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Rob. Yes.
I think Gallo will be out soon. They're not gonna DFA him. They're trying to trade him. Mm-hmm. Someone's gonna give you something for him. It won't be a lot, but you'll get something. For now, Locastro probably gets sent down. Is he still there? And Benintendi takes his spot. He starts. Gallo just takes up a spot on the bench until he's moved, and then you eventually fill that spot when you need to. You're not DFAing Gallo. That they would have done it by now.
Yeah.
Unless they trade him before first pitch, then he's obviously gone. But for now, it's probably Locastro. They luckily didn't have to make room on the 40-man because Shane Green just got DFA'd. So they're in good shape right now. All they got to do is send down Locastro for the 17th time since they got him. So nothing unusual.
17th time.
Locastro hasn't really done anything wrong. It's just the happenstance of finding room for him.
He'll be back when we trade Gallo.
Yeah,
he'll come right back.
No, I read an article about Joey Gallo this morning from the New York Post. So the reason why he's not been moved yet is because there's actually interest. There's like 3 or 4 teams circling around him. The Rangers principally, but they're actually focused on Soto right now. Plus, the return that the Yankees are due to get for him is not where they're looking for. They are looking to get something reasonable in return for a player like Joey Gallo. So that's why he's not gone yet. It will happen by the deadline. No question about it. He will be gone. He's definitely not going to be DFA'd. So we won't see Joey Gallo much longer. I mean, let's look at the evidence right now. He's missed 6 of his last 9 games. Boone's not played him. He's had a couple of really bad pinch hit appearances. That's all we've really seen of him. And then every time he plays, which is once a week now, he strikes out all the time. So I mean, he's done. He's batting 160. His career is shot as a Yankee. But I do have a feeling that in another environment, and with some severe mechanical work, like he needs to really go down right back and really strip that swing down. Like if he gets his mechanics fixed elsewhere, where there's not a huge cauldron of pressure of being a Yankee and being on a pennant-winning team, then I have a feeling that he'll be a better player. I mean, he's never going to be a player that I'm ever going to appreciate watching because I just don't like that type of player. But I think he'll improve elsewhere.
Yeah, I still think he still has some life in him as far as reestablishing his career. He's not in New York. It's not going to. It hasn't worked, and it's not going. If it hasn't worked by now, it's not going to work.
No, it won't. Because look at last year before the trade, how good he was an all-star last year. The guy was putting up fantastic numbers. You don't just all of a sudden go from that to what he is now, and there's not like maybe it's a mental thing. I hate using. I say it all the time. I hate the he can't handle New York thing, but maybe he's just one of those players. We saw it with Sonny Gray, good pitcher, came to the Yankees, was okay at first, and then just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
It happens. Sometimes you just see players that don't play well in a certain environment. And I'm sure Joey Gallo, if he goes to a team like San Diego, he'll be fine. They got a lot of length in that lineup, and they can use him in the outfield. And he'll probably pop a few. That's a very friendly park for hitters. So I'm sure he'll be fine. There's still a spot for him in baseball. Just it clearly hasn't worked out with us. I wish it did, obviously, because we'd be winning a lot more games and scoring more runs if he was first half Gallo last year for us. But for whatever reason it is, just hasn't worked out. And it is time to move on, and hopefully they get something decent for him. But at this point, you just got to take what you can get and move on, because the experiment should have been over long ago.
Another good thing about the Benintendi deal is that we get to see less of Josh Donaldson. I don't think Josh Donaldson necessarily going to be an automatic starter at third base now, because you could put DJ LeMahieu at third. There's now an option where Matt Carpenter can DH. This is when fully healthy. You can put Stanton in the outfield and right field, Judge center, Benintendi left, right, third base. You can now put DJ LeMahieu at third, who's played an excellent third base this year. And then we've still got Torres at second. And that's a big win for us too, because Josh Donaldson's been a disgrace, actually. I think I can go as far as to say offensively, he's been a disgrace.
He's been terrible. He's so bad. And you know what? I don't think that Carpenter should prevent us from getting another bat potentially. I don't think we're out on Juan Soto. I'm just going to say it. I don't think we're out on Juan Soto. I still see a scenario where we can land him. And now imagine that outfield, because Stanton's coming back from an Achilles injury. You don't want to put him in the outfield right away. And Matt Carpenter in the last week is starting to show signs of – it's only 7 games, but he's had a very small sample size to begin with. He struggled since getting everyday playing time. So maybe he's best suited for the bench, and you can use him in certain spots.
I don't think he's struggled. I think he's struggled defensively. I think he's struggled in the outfield. He looks like an infielder playing outfield, especially with the run that scored. The very first run that Matt scored there yesterday. The route he took to the ball and the way he threw the ball is what an infielder would do. And so, like, if it was Aaron Judge there, or even if it was Stanton there, that runner would not have run from third to score the first run.
No, and I think he did not look comfortable in the outfield at Citi Field. He just looked like a fish out of water out there. And I think it would have been he would have been a lot better off if Stanton didn't end up on the IL, because then you would have had Stanton in the outfield, and you could have used Carpenter as your bench player, off the bench or as a DH. But I think the trying to focus on playing in the outfield kind of it almost seems like it's affecting his bat a little bit. Nothing drastic where he's pressing, but just enough to go, all right. Maybe he needs to be go to being a bench player for a couple of games and rest up.
I think he's been great offensively. I mean, let's not forget we struggled to do anything against Scherzer. We couldn't string together a hit against Scherzer, but Carpenter did.
Well,
he put us in a situation where
against Scherzer, he had to run his on.
Well, he certainly provided the help.
Well, no, I'm not saying we need to move on from him. I'm just saying you can expect regression because he is 36. We can't be like, hey, this guy's been really good for 30 games. He has to play every day and expect him to keep up this pace because it's almost impossible to do what he's done the rest of the way. And it's a lot to ask for a dude who's 36 years old and was almost out of baseball. He's done more than we could have ever asked from him. I'm just saying you can expect regression, and we're starting to see it. He's facing better pitching, and he hasn't been as good, which is something you should expect from a player of 36 years old. I would rather him at third base anyway.
I think he'd be fine at third base.
Yeah. He'd be fine at third. Yeah, if you're playing 36-year-old Donaldson, why can't you play 36-year-old Carpenter at third?
Did you notice on one of the foul balls that Donaldson took that you saw the mechanics? That's where the Donaldson's problem is. His front foot is lunging forward, and that means that he's normally when you're hitting, your power is generated through your body, but he's lunging. And that's what the problem is, I believe. And that's why he's always out in front. If you notice, he's constantly out in front. He's constantly fouling off easy fastballs. And he's getting done on off speed because his swing isn't balanced. His body isn't balanced. I'm surprised that our hitting coach hasn't picked up on that because that was glaring to me. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Everything's off with him right now. He's trying too hard to get out of a slump that's been there for the whole season. It's the same thing I've been saying with Gallo. When you see players get into a slump, they want to get out of it fast. So we've seen Donaldson have some big hits, like he gets a double, and you're like, okay, that could be. He hit a double last night against Scherzer, right? Like you're like, okay, maybe that can be something to get him going. And the next at bat, he just freezes and doesn't do anything, or he hits a light tapper, ground ball, whatever, and you're like, what are you doing differently? And we see that all season long because he's had spells of where he's been good at the plate. You're like, yeah, that's Donaldson. I don't care if he doesn't have to hit 270, 280, but if he gets on base, he's hitting for power. He's not doing that. And he's just grounding the ball over, rolling it over weakly.
Rolling it over a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and that's not something that you want from a $25 million player. You expected a lot more from him. So
no, it was like that double he hit late in the game yesterday. It's like, where's that guy every day?
Yeah, that's what Rob just said. So we've got 12 minutes left. We've not really touched on this last game. What are your thoughts? So we left a small village on the base paths. Did anybody have any issue with Aaron Boone putting in Holmes in the 8th and Wandy Peralta in the 9th?
No, because he had said that he was going to use these guys based on where they were in the lineup and how the games were being played. So I wasn't surprised that he brought in Holmes in the 8th with the heart of the lineup. That just shows how confident he is in Holmes, that he can handle that lineup no matter where, that part of the lineup, whether it's the 8th or the 9th. It was all right. Let's keep it here. Let's not let them add on a third, another run. I'm bringing him in now before they gets any worse, so we still have a chance in the 9th.
Rob,
I think if he put in Wandy in the 8th and Wandy gave up a run, you'd be like, why didn't you go to Holmes? And then that's the thing. You had the heart of the Mets order, so you want your best pitcher. But we only have one good pitcher in the bullpen right now. So the only thing that did for me was tell me, Jesus Christ, we need a bullpen arm or 3 right now. Because if Wandy is your second high leverage guy, he's been good, but he's already done this on a couple of occasions this year where he's come up and he's given up a run in that situation. And he was facing the bottom of the Mets order, and immediately first batter doubles. And you're like, well, there it goes. The next guy gets him over to third, and then you're like, if he has some David Robertson magic in him, he can get out of this, but he didn't. We shouldn't be too upset that Boone went with Holmes than Wandy, because I would rather Holmes face that part of the Mets order any day of the week. Just so happens it was an inning before the ninth, but he had no other choice. It's like he has Holmes or Peralta to go to. You could have put Schmidt there, but then you're asking a lot out of the guy who's been jobbed already. So if he struggles and you're like, this is why he needs to be a starter. So it's really a no-win scenario, because either Wandy gives up a run in the eighth against the middle of the order, and then Holmes has to try to keep it, or there wouldn't have been a ninth inning. So, yeah, it was really just Boone having to use whatever he has in that bullpen the best way he could have done. I don't think he was necessarily outmanaged. Well, he was the first game when he
definitely was outmanaged.
That situation,
he was 100% outmanaged.
But last night he really had no other options besides Holmes in the eighth and Peralta in the ninth, because we're out of guys right now.
I mean, that series was ugly series, I think, for Aaron Boone. It really was, especially when he pinch hit for Joey Gallo. I mean, it played right into Buck's hands. He swapped Ottavino for Diaz, and then, oh boy, that was the ugliest matchup you're ever going to see. So he got done over there. And actually, I completely disagreed with putting Wandy Peralta in the ninth inning. I didn't like it. I said it at the time. I said, oh, well, the Mets are going to walk it off, and they did. I mean, I just knew it. It was going to happen. But you guys aren't wrong that it just showed that we only have one reliever that we trust. I mean, I would have tried to see if we could have gotten Holmes, because he's not really pitched at all in like the last 4 or 5 days. I wonder if we could maybe stretch out a second inning for Holmes. But I just didn't like the scenario, because here's the reason why I didn't like it. What would have happened had Aaron Judge driven in a run and then we were up going into the bottom of the ninth inning? Would Holmes be there, or would it be Wandy Peralta, or would it have been AN other? Who would it have been? And that's my biggest problem. So that's why I really want my closer to be closing games in the ninth inning. So that's why I strongly disagreed with it. And I strongly disagreed with how the series was managed. The idea that Domingo Germán pitched at all yesterday was a disgrace. And again, we didn't see Clark Schmidt. Clark Schmidt is our prized arm, and we never see him. What is going on with that? We never see him. He's our prized arm.
I was not happy that they were using that. We had said it yesterday. The fact that they were using Germán, I think, is a big mistake. But when you look at the line score on him, he wasn't terrible. I'm not going to say he had a phenomenal game, but he wasn't terrible.
Forget the line score. I watched him. He never trusted his fastball. He didn't trust his fastball. Everything he threw was off speed.
But he was getting swing and misses with the off speed too. So if they're not reading your off speed, if it's working, stick with it.
Well,
yeah, but it was a Mets lineup that's struggling. Look what he did against Houston. They blasted him, and he was doing the same exact thing. He did fine for a long reliever. If you put him, I'm telling you, just switch the role. It was nice to see that he kept us in the ball game, but we were also facing Max Scherzer. So the second he gave up a run, which was the fourth batter he faced, guess what? The game was pretty much in the Mets' hands at that point.
Yeah.
So what this series did for me was it told me, we still need a pitcher. I'm not saying we don't need a starting pitcher and we need bullpen help. We really need offense more than people think. Benintendi's a start, but I do not think we're out on Juan Soto, because imagine having to go through that lineup. I'm just imagine trying to go through that. If Stanton's your DH and you're dealing with Benintendi and Judge and Stanton and Rizzo and LeMahieu, Torres, there's no need for Donaldson. There's no need to worry about ICAF at the bottom of the order. You got to deal with the top 7 that no other team in baseball can put out there. And Jeff Passan said it yesterday. The Yankees are real deal in on Juan Soto. Andrew Benintendi trade, we gave up nothing.
Was that prior to the Benintendi trade, though?
It was, but he doesn't just say things. And look at what we gave up for Benintendi. Does any of those players go to Washington for Juan Soto?
No, but I think that some will be going to Castillo, and Castillo's a priority for me over Soto. I think we are out on Soto. I really do. Because, Soto's going to cost us Volpe, Peraza, blah, 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 blah. Plus, we also have to think about the offer we're going to send to Castillo. I think we're out on Volpe. On Soto. But for me, the priority is Castillo. We've got ourselves a really good outfielder in Benintendi. I'm really annoyed that Gleyber Torres saved the game, the 2-run home run. And we didn't ride that momentum. Now, Aaron Judge had his first bad game of probably the entire year.
Yeah.
He really struggled. He could not get near Scherzer's slider. His slider was just killing the Yankees. And that's why it's a good idea to bring in a guy like Benintendi, because he is a contact hitter who doesn't strike out. And that's our problem with our lineup. My issue with this lineup is especially with Stanton gone, after Carpenter in the lineup, you're done. Forget it. You can pre-predict. You can go home. You can get a coffee, go get a beer, because the next 2 innings is not worth watching, because they're going to be automatic outs. That's how serious it is. So we definitely need another bat. I'm glad we got that, and Stanton needs to come back ASAP too.
No, and the worst part about with the lineup is Scherzer did not have his pitches weren't as crisp as they normally are. There were a lot of pitches that were being fouled off, or lightly hit, that were in the middle of the zone. That he was leading. Some of his breaking balls were sitting dead red. The Yankees just weren't reading it enough to capitalize on the mistakes that he was making. So he was lucky as much as he was good.
I think that's harsh. He was fantastic.
No, I'm not saying that's not what I'm saying. The Yankees, if they were on their game and we had a stronger lineup, like it's already looking like we have with Benintendi, some of those few mistake pitches that the Yankees couldn't hit, more likely would be hit.
We only had 6 strikeouts, and I think 3 of them were Judge. So
yeah,
they weren't getting overpowered. There was that one LeMahieu line drive that would have drove in a run, and he got robbed. LeMahieu's been on fire lately, so you saw how mad he was because he threw his bat. You never see him show any emotion. So
that's right.
I think that Judge was just overpowered yesterday. He that one at bat where Scherzer fed him 4 sliders and he swung at 3 of them. Yeah. I was like, yeah, Judge just had a bad night. And if there's anyone that's given a reprieve from any criticism this year, it's him. Yep. It just sucks that it was against a top pitcher, because that matchup's going to come in October with whoever we're facing in the first round. You're going to have their top pitcher. And I'm just sick of seeing our offense shrink against good pitching, which is why I want another big bat. I know I still want the pitching. I still do. Don't get me wrong. If we get Castillo, I'm not going to say that's terrible. But I really do want another big bat, because I'm sick of watching this team in October score 1 run in a playoff game, and our starter, who can apparently pitch in October, gives up a run or 2, and you're like, well, the game's over now because we can't score against top pitching.
My biggest concern, just briefly before we finish, is that the approach at the plate right now is reverting back to 2021, where everyone's aiming for the stands. No one's aiming just to get on base apart from LeMahieu. And that was really pissed me off. It was ridiculous. Everyone was swinging for the fences. The first inning, 9 pitches. So I think it was 6 pitches he got out of the first inning, and 3 of them were flyouts. That's what was your cousin saying? Work Scherzer, get him out, get after his bullpen. What were we doing? We were fouling off we were swinging at the first pitch that he was throwing. So the approach was stupid. The approach was terrible, and we've played 4 good teams, and we're 0 for 4. The Mets and the Astros, the last 4 games. So we're not as good. We're not as good as we say we are. We aren't.
No, we're starting to see a lot of the holes, and lucky enough, it's before the deadline where we still have time to adjust and fix it. So I think the next move you're going to see is going to be Castillo. There will be a bullpen arm, and then Cashman's going to look and see what cards he has left to play to go for and continue talks with Soto. So I think that's going to be the chain of events. We'll see how it plays out. This has been the Pinstripe Chronicles on Northeast Streaming Sports. Weigh in pinstripes with pride and play hard.